Hi, this is Charlie, and this week I'm doing a slightly different video for you. I'm talking about how I breached being a beginner trader to become a successful trader. Because when I start, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about how I got into trading. For some of you who won't know, Kim and I got into trading at the same time with a couple of other friends. We went on a course with an American company teaching us how to trade options back then. And it doesn't matter about the course. We never continued with that in the end, but and certainly the course itself was quite limited as they often are. But it got us into trading, and I got into trading to trade on the side of my career. I didn't actually intend to become a full-time trader. It wasn't my goal at the outset because I loved my career. Ironically, as time went on, I found my career a bit more tiring because there was a lot of corporate entertaining, as wonderful as that is when you're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Because I was doing a lot of karate at that point when I was doing karate all those years ago for 20 years, all the competitions and stuff. It was a conflict of interest. So in the end, I left. But if I just rewind the clock, many of you know that I took an initial account of 40,000, took it up to 250,000, then blew the lot all the way back down to about 1,000, because I was over leveraged. I was a young guy, thought I knew it all after just a couple of months or so of trading, had a lucky run, basically. A lucky run, but with that amount of leverage, it was only going to be a matter of time before it came all the way back down. So that's how I started in that first year, and then bit by bit, obviously, I had to learn discipline, learn about having a bit more structure to what I was doing. But even once I did, what I found, and many of you will be able to relate to this, is that my P&L was pretty much doing this for another year, where I could prove that I could make money, because I could make money, but for several months, then I'd get to a point where I'd plateau. But at this point, I would do the OC, overconfident. So I'd get overconfident at this point. Then I'd start taking trades. My discipline would go. Start taking trades that I wouldn't have taken prior. Just thinking, oh well, it's okay. I've got plenty of profit. I've made plenty of profit, so it doesn't matter if I have a losing trade. It was that type of mentality. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself giving it back, because then you have one losing trade, and then you get a bit frustrated, and you just take another one with no setup, and before you know it, your P&L's coming back down again. And then you tighten up, you become strict again over a period, and these are like 3, 4, 5 month periods at a time. And fun enough, and then the P&L starts going back up again. Then you repeat the whole process. And it was only once I'd gone through this process several times of getting overconfident, then giving it back again, and then getting strict, and then making money again, that you sort of realize, every time I get overconfident and I start trading with a lack of discipline, I give back my money. And so going through that was my sort of light bulb moment. It's nothing revelationary, but it's what happened with me, and I'm sure a lot of people can, like I say, sympathize with that. So that was because I was always a bit more of an overconfident trader, if you will. I was more of a greed-based trader than a fitted-based trader. That was always my Achilles heel, that I would always then start just taking over trading, so to speak, or putting up too much risk, and so then giving back the profits. But anyway, funnily enough, it wasn't rocket science. Gave back them. Realized that discipline works, and all of a sudden, your P&L starts to move that bit better. Now, I'm a firm believer that you also need a bit of luck when it comes to any endeavor you go through, and I do think there was probably a bit of luck personally when I did decide to go full-time trading in 2001 and left my career. That some of the strategies that I was employing when I went full-time just worked well for a good 2 or 3 years. Whilst I was still growing my experience, the strategy just worked really well without me having to worry about them too much and constantly having to tweak, and with those sort of skill sets that you're still building. So of course we all have a bit of luck here and there, and I think that's part and parcel of any endeavor that we go through. The internet wasn't what it was today, of course. so information wasn't as readily shared or as readily available as it is today back then. So I think that probably protected the sort of strategies that I was using at that stage. But I think that also you've got to, when you rewind back to when I started and those first couple of years or so, just trying to get to a point where I could manage myself and become profitable. I do think you've got to truly love what you're doing. You've got to be passionate about it. Most people get into trading because they want to make money. That's what I got into trading for. Same as Kim, oh right, we'll make some money on the side of our careers. And of course, that's what everyone gets into trading for, but you do need to be passionate about it as well. I think if you continue to just want to trade purely as a means to an end, then I don't think that those people tend to stick at it in the same way, because it does require a lot of work and effort and tenacity. And if you're just doing it for the money, that's not enough. You've got to do it because you love it as well. And I think if I can give any advice, that has to happen. And also I think that sometimes fate plays a part in these things. I think fate played a part in me getting into that trading course back in the first place, and went with Kim and a couple of other friends. The other couple of friends gave up after 6 months, usual sort of thing. We stuck at it. But and fate of how that led to 4 years later me deciding to quit my career, because then I could go into trading. And it's a bit like when Kim and I first met, we actually met on a trip out to Albania, which many of you won't know about, at the karate organization that we were both members of at the time. Organized, did a huge fundraising mission to take a load of aid out to Albania. Albania had just come out of the communist bloc at that stage, and there was a lot of poverty over there, and a lot of homeless children, orphanages, and so we took something like 20-40 foot lorries of aid out to Albania. And so we hired all these lorries, had all the aid in there, and then we had about 10 4x4 trucks accompanying the lorries all the way out to Albania. It was a real adventure. I was only 18 years old. And anyway, when we got out to Albania, there was a lot of desperation out there. We visited orphanages, and it was a very desperate situation out there at the time. But in the rush to leave, before we left Bedford, which was where we set off from, I think it was the Bishop of Bedford, or High Priest of Bedford, gave us a Bible that he'd blessed for us to give to one of the orphanages in Albania. And once we were out there, it became very dangerous. We were only in Albania, I think, in the end for a couple of days or so, 2 or 3 days. And there was, such desperation. The army was sent in to protect us. There was gunfire going off. It was really quite a scary situation. So in our rush to leave, we never got to donate the Bible to the orphanage that we wanted to. We'd already visited some. And we all split off on our way back. So I was in one truck and then I think it was two of us, two 4x4s, and we took the coast road. So we went up through Dubrovnik, fun enough, in former Yugoslavia, followed the coast road up there, but it was a war zone. We were literally driving through the back streets of Dubrovnik as Dubrovnik was getting bombed from a warship in the water there. It literally sat out there in the water. Every 2 minutes there were shells being fired into Dubrovnik. Dubrovnik was empty. Everybody had deserted Dubrovnik at that point, apart from us two 4x4 Land Rovers driving through the back streets of Dubrovnik. And there was me thinking, right, that's it, we're going to die now. This is how I'm going to die. But anyway, we made it through, and we stopped that evening in Bosnia or somewhere, wherever it was at the time, at a hotel. And as we walked in and checked into this hotel, there were children everywhere. And we checked in, and when we came back down, we just plonked our bags down and came back down and to organise dinner. And we asked them, how come there's so many children everywhere? And they said, well, unfortunately, they're orphans from the war. They've lost their parents. It was such a sad thing, but what was wonderful is that we could just give them what we could give them, and it felt like fate that that Bible that we'd been given to hand to people in Albania still ended up going very much to a good, very good home. It doesn't matter whether you're religious or not about the Bible, but it's the significance of what we did there. And I do believe in fate coming back to trading and the like. So, and I think if you're born to do it, you're born to do it. Doesn't matter what age you get started at. It's if you want to do it and you have that tenacity, then usually things will work out for you. And I do think coming back to tenacity, if you look at any of the core finance interviews that I've done, they're all on our website. I put the last one onto YouTube, but I can put all of them onto YouTube now, all the future ones. But if you go onto our website on Easy Trader, then they're all on there under the core finance tab. And most of the people that are doing well, they didn't do well overnight. It might have taken them however many. The last lady was 4 or 5 years before she's done really well. A guy before that, it was about 3 or 4 years. So it always comes back down to how much you want it. It's not always something which happens overnight. It can do. It can happen relatively quickly, and you can be profitable in your first year. But some people, it's not like that. So if you're in that category, do not give up. That's all I'm saying there. I do think you have to have that strong belief, that strong willpower to stay at it. But if you do, then it's all available to you. One thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to have some goals and some realistic plans, and don't think that you're going to turn £1,000 into £1,000,000 in a year. Have realistic goals. Write out a proper plan. Every time we write out a plan, it's really useful. Something about writing down your goals is always important, but again, make them achievable goals that you can reach step by step. But and if you do that, and if you work hard, then trading is all there for you. So I'm going to pretty much leave that with you today. A slightly different video, sorry about that, but I just wanted to share a couple of stories about how I went from being a beginner trader myself to how I ended up going full time, and then how it developed from there to some other anecdotes as well. Anyway, hopefully some of you it's touched a nerve, but for others they're probably thinking, it doesn't relate to me. Well, whatever, hopefully there's something there. I shall see you on Friday for live trading.